Guess what time it is? It is time for another game of Shelve It or Shove It, the completely superficial way to pick books for your TBR based solely on their cover. I am the booktube goddess, the #1 drag queen booktuber on YouTube, and this is my monthly TBR game. I'll be looking at new releases on Goodreads in the young adult, science fiction, and fantasy categories, and picking at least one book to add to my TBR. So jumping right in, let's go to young adult. First up is Gallant by V.E. Schwab, and this is her young adult entry. You know, I did like The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue quite a lot. I also liked her Different Shades of Magic series. I wasn't a huge fan of her middle grade series, but this is young adult, so I am kind of curious about it, and I love this cover. I love these two houses in some type of gyroscope. Oh wow, there's like hands and ghosts in the gyroscope. And then there's two statues, one of a devil and one of an angel, sort of mirrored. So this is some type of mirror universe ghost story, I'm thinking. I am actually loving this cover, and because it's V.E. Schwab, of course, this is gonna be shelved. We are off to a good start. Next up is All My Rage by Saba Tahir. So I have read this author before, the Ember in Ashes series. I have to be honest with you, I liked the first two books of the series, and it kind of lost me in the last two books. And I don't know what this one's about. It doesn't look like a fantasy. Actually, I don't like this cover at all. The cover's not telling me anything. What are these two circles supposed to be? A coffee cup? I don't know the genre. I don't know anything about this. This is definitely getting shoved. Next up is A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy Lin. Don't know this author, but my goodness, this cover is brilliant. All these vibrant colors, sort of pastel colors, but they almost go into a darker hue than pastels, sort of almost rich jewel tones. I like these carps. The title, A Magic Steeped in Poison, and she has, I guess, looks like a teacup. So is this about an assassin? And there's sort of an anime quality to this, and I love this cover. This one is going to be shelved. Next up is Blood Scion by Deborah Fillet. And it's an okay cover. I sort of like the graphic. I like the sort of blue-black texture on the skin. That's kind of interesting. But it's kind of giving me generic fantasy vibes. I'm not quite sure what's going on. Looks like there's a fire. Is it a war? Is it some type of magic? I don't know. I'm not really feeling this one. I'm going to shove it. And last up in young adult, so this is Ever After by F.T. Lukens. Oh, I like this cover too. It almost looks like a graphic novel cover of these two young men who are, looks like a prince or a king and his advisor, sorcerer, mage, holding a magic staff, so thinking wizard and king type of situation, and fairy tale vibes. I'd want to read this more as a graphic novel, or better yet, seeing an animated version of it, because I do like the animation. So I haven't had very much luck on romance storylines, which I think this is what it is. But oh, the cover's so cute. Okay, just based on the cover, I'm going to shelve it. Did I really just shelve 3 young adult? Okay, let's move on to science fiction. First up is Tell Me an Ending by Joe Harkin. I don't like this cover. I kind of like the blocky cutouts that makes it look pixelated, I guess. And there's a crow, but boy, am I getting nothing from the cover. Nothing about what the story is about or even the genre. I'm going to shove it. Next up is Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi. Now, I've already heard about this book when I did my new releases to look out for in 2022. And this was on that list. And I was very curious about it because I don't recall reading John Scalzi before. And I want to pick something up. And this is kind of a, I don't know, end of days Jurassic Park. I mean, there's a nuclear bomb in his name, Scalzi. So I'm thinking it's post-apocalyptic. But I know it has to do with dinosaurs or big monsters. And it's kind of an interesting cover because the name of everything looks like it's a card on a lanyard like you get when you go to conventions. So curious about this one. Okay, I'm just going to shelve it. Next up is Until the Last of Me by Sylvain Neuvel, a Take Them to the Stars novel. Okay, so I'm guessing this is part of a series. And I do like the cover. I don't love the cover, but I like in the background there's sort of this transparent old world solar system map, which is kind of cool. Of course, if this is part of a series, I haven't been keeping up with it, and the cover isn't that good. So I am going to shove it. Next up, The Way Spring Arrives and Other Stories. Oh, interesting. A collection of Chinese science fiction and fantasy in translation. Well, from a visionary team of female and non-binary creators. Whoa. Okay, well, this is interesting. Don't know if I'm in the mood for short stories. If you're interested in this type of thing, please check it out. But, I mean, the cover's interesting. It looks like a Chinese character painted on something and it's dripping like it's in a storm and there's flowers. This is a curious one, but for Shelve It or Shove It, I think I'm going to have to shove it. But please, if you're looking to diversify your reading, I don't think it can get much more diverse than this collection of Chinese science fiction and fantasy stories by female and non-binary authors. It sounds pretty interesting. And last in science fiction, A House Between Earth and the Moon by Rebecca Sherm. And it looks like there's some sort of space scene and there's like this door opening in it and then the font is over all that. It's interesting, but not feeling it. I'm going to have to shove it. And now we move on to fantasy. First book is The Cartographers by Peng Shepherd. And the cover's kind of interesting because it's one of those optical illusions where there's a shelf either going this way or this way. It's hard to tell which way it's going. And it's kind of cool. I guess this is a contemporary fantasy because there's a light bulb and looks like there's a compass, there's books. And there is a door between some books, so maybe it's a portal fantasy. You know, I'm curious enough about it, and the cover is intriguing me enough. I think I'm going to shelve it. Next up is The Atlas 6 by Olivia Blake. And looks like there's a symbol of the solar system. There's an eye with a sword in it. I don't know. I'm not getting too much from the cover. I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is The War of Two Queens by Jennifer Armentrout. And it says a Blood and Ash novel. So I'm guessing this is part of a series. And The cover is looking very, very generic. It looks like there's a symbol of a dragon and there's some flowers around it. And the font's in the center with the big type like they always do. I'm going to have to shove it. Next up is The Bone Orchard by Sarah Mueller. And, well, I guess it's bones growing in a garden. It looks like a hand. The hand looks kind of weird. But anyway, there's flowers growing off it. There's mushrooms growing off it. I don't know what this is about. Could be horror. Could be anything. You know what? Too many questions. I'm going to have to shove it. And finally, we have Wild and Wicked Things by Francesca May. It's another one of those covers that I'm not fond of because I see it so often with the big text and the symbols and whatever around it. But of that type of cover, I do like the symbols around it. I like sort of the alchemical symbols. There's a pentagram, there's a chalice, there's a bird, looks like some type of test tubes maybe, and they have this interesting silhouette, a very Art Nouveau woman smoking a cigarette. Even though this isn't my favorite type of cover, I do find this really intriguing. It's set in the 1920s and it's about the occult and fantasy. I guess you could call it historical fantasy, maybe. I don't know. But you know what? I'm just tired of this type of cover. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to bite again. I'm going to shove it. Okay, we'll pick 5 books this week. 3 young adult. Gallant by V.E. Schwab. A Magic Steeped in Poison by Judy Lin. So This Is Ever After by F.T. Lukens. And in science fiction, we picked The Kaiju Preservation Society. And in fantasy, The Cartographers by Peng Shepherd. So, Okay, I'm going to cut So This Is Ever After simply because I think it may be a romance and I haven't had good luck reading romances, especially young adult romances, even if it's gay. I think all these books look good. I think I'm going to pick one young adult, Gallant by V.E. Schwab, because I love V.E. Schwab so much. And as much as I love this cover of A Magic Steeped in Poison, I'm really not sure what it's about. Gallant, from the cover, you can kind of get an idea. But here's the question. I kind of am interested in both the Kaiju Preservation Society and the Cartographers. So I think I'm going to pick 2 books. I'm going to pick Gallant by V.E. Schwab for sure. And I'm going to go with the Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi because I've been wanting to read something by John Scalzi and this seems interesting. I hope. Okay, so let's read the blurbs to see what I've gotten myself into. First up, Gallant by V.E. Schwab. Everything casts a shadow, even the world we live in. And as with every shadow, there is a place where it must touch, a seam where the shadow meets its source. Olivia Pryor has grown up in Marylance School for Girls, and all she has of her past is her mother's journal, which seems to unravel into madness. Then, a letter invites Olivia to come home, to Gallant. Yet, when Olivia arrives, no one is expecting her. But Olivia is not about to leave the first place that feels like home. It doesn't matter if her cousin Matthew is hostile or if she sees half-formed ghouls haunting the hallways. Olivia knows that Gallant is hiding things, and she is determined to uncover them. When she crosses a ruined wall at just the right moment, Olivia finds herself in a place that is Gallant, but not. The manor is crumbling, The ghouls are solid, and a mysterious figure rules over all. Now Olivia sees what has unraveled generations of her family and where her father may have come from. Olivia has wanted to belong somewhere, but will she take her place as a prior, protecting the world against the master of the house, or will she take her place beside him? I am excited about this one. I'm getting some type of Victorian setting, Maryland School for Girls, and it feels like it's a portal fantasy, Victorian times, magic school. There's a lot of things going for it, but it also seems dark. So I am here for it. I kind of hope it's a standalone, but if it's a series, we'll see where it goes. And the science fiction book I picked up was The Kaiju Preservation Society by John Scalzi. So let's read the blurb. And off the bat it says it's John Scalzi's first standalone adventure since the conclusion of his best-selling Interdependency trilogy, so that's kind of exciting. When COVID-19, oh boy. Don't know how I feel about reading a COVID-19 story, but let's push on. When COVID-19 sweeps through New York City, Jamie Gray is stuck as a dead-end driver for food delivery apps. That is, until Jamie makes a delivery to an old acquaintance, Tom, who works at what he calls an animal rights organization. Tom's team needs a last-minute grunt to handle things on their next field visit. Jamie, eager to do anything, immediately signs on. What Tom doesn't tell Jamie is that the animals his team cares for are not here on Earth, not our Earth at least. In an alternate dimension, massive dinosaur-sized creatures named kaiju roam a warm and human-free world. They're the universe's largest and most dangerous panda, and they're in trouble. It's not just the Kaiju Preservation Society that's found its way to the alternate world. Others have too, and their carelessness could cause millions back on Earth to die. So when I read COVID-19, I was immediately, I don't know if I want to read this, but that's just a background. It's a person who's a delivery guy, and he gets swept up into this animal rights activism that's actually preserving huge dinosaur-like creatures. And I'm getting flashbacks to when I read the synopsis back when I looked at it for the 2022 new releases. So we'll see how it is. I know a lot of people are big fans of John Scalzi, and I'm excited to read one of his standalones. But what do you think? What books would you have picked based solely on their covers? Please like this video and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you're interested in more videos about books, I have another one right here. Until we meet again, may all the books you read be blessed.